Hey folks, Dust here, and before I get into the video, just to introduce myself very quickly to those of you in the Valorant scene who may not know who I am. I come primarily from the Counter-Strike scene as a commentator, desk analyst, and content creator, working with several different tournament organizers in the Counter-Strike space, particularly in CSGO over the last several years, but also did some stuff in Counter-Strike Source if you go even further back. And so far in Valorant, I did the Pulse series, which I believe was in September, or something like that, so not that long ago. And then I've been working on the North American First Strike qualifiers with Nerd Street Gamers, and will continue to do so even after this video comes out with my duo partner Vince. And I want to start doing Valorant content as well, and I've already done a couple little videos here and there on the YouTube channel that you can check out if you want to learn some history about some of the North American teams, and I plan to do more videos like that and some analytical stuff about maps and strategy and all that good stuff in the future as well, probably, maybe even podcasts, who knows. But what I want to do with this video is talk a little bit about my wish list for the spectating experience for Valorant. And I'm thinking about it from the perspective of someone covering the game, what I would like to see, the information I would want, and tools I would like to have as a commentator to better do my job. But I'm also thinking about the spectator experience at home for the viewers, for the fans, for the people out there who are following the game. And I'm also thinking that maybe those things need to be separated. Maybe what we as commentators see on our spec UI should be different than what the viewers see at home. That's one way to look at it. Or maybe we all look at the same experience. It just depends. And I'll actually throw some images up a little bit later on some examples of, you know, the changes that I would like to see done. And then maybe this can generate a conversation where people out in the community can kind of give their feedback on what they would like to see. And maybe this gets to Riot, and maybe we actually see some of these changes if we think that they're good. Coming from the Counter-Strike scene, a lot of what I'll be kind of pitching is things that we see in Counter-Strike. And some people may not like that. So people may want the Riot experience to be a little bit different than the Counter-Strike experience when it comes to spectating, to kind of further separate the games. But the bottom line is that there's a lot of Counter-Strike influence in Valorant, so I don't see why we should reinvent the wheel on what has worked for FPS as far as spectating goes, because the Counter-Strike spectator UI is not that much different than UIs from other first-person shooters. So I just think that the way that it has been set up and what third parties have even done with their own custom spec UIs for Counter-Strike, I think can work well for Valorant, where we get the information that we want, it looks clean, and it really just makes the whole experience a lot better and makes the game easier to follow, which ultimately will lead to better commentary, a better broadcast, and a better experience for you at home if you're quickly looking for information you'd like to have without having to pull up a second window to look at live stats and different things of that nature. So that's kind of what I'm really looking at here. So first off, just to let you know how we spectate right now, essentially the observer is in the game. And we watch the observer's feed, which is the same feed that you're seeing on stream, through various different programs. We could do it through a program called vMix, where we actually see the program feed, and we actually see basically what you see on stream. Make sure that we're seeing the same thing. That's very important when you're commentating remotely, to make sure that you and your partner are on the same page, and to make sure that what we're talking about is the same thing that you're seeing on screen. That way we won't be confusing you. And so us being all synced up is obviously very important. And we can do that through things such as vMix. Sometimes I've even seen Discord video calls. Parsec is also kind of popular, where you basically just kind of remote into someone's PC and see what their PC is seeing. And there's various different ways that this can work out. But what I think would be great is if the commentators could also be in the spectator slots in the server, which is possible because the spectator slots have been increased, but to give us the option to follow the observer's feed. So that way we can follow what the observer's following, and that way all the commentators and the observer and you at home watching the stream are all seeing the same thing. But it gives us commentators an option to maybe pull up windows and things to look at stats or to look at a larger version of the map and, you know, be able to look at things. Because one thing I like to do as a color commentator is I like to bring up the big map overview sometimes, because it lets me just get a bigger picture of the mini map. And as a color commentator, while my play-by-play is covering, you know, the micro situations that are happening on the map, I can get kind of more of a macro view of the game, kind of see how people are positioning, just get a better view of how utilities being set up or how abilities are being used, whether that be cameras or, you know, various different things. It just allows me a way to pull up the map and kind of view things from a bigger picture, but not influence what you are watching on the stream at home. And so I think that that would be a great way to do things, is that, you know, the observer and the commentators are in the server, but we can follow the observer's point of view, so that way we're all watching the same thing, but we can pull up the giant version of the mini map. We could, you know, maybe pull up stats or something if we get more advanced things built into the spectator UI later, that way we can kind of quickly reference a statistic or something like that, but we don't have to flash it up on the screen and clog up the clean kind of viewer feed, you know. So I think that that would be a great great. And another great thing would be, what if the observer can follow the commentator's point of view? So let's say the observer is observing, and let's say we're in freeze time, and let's say one of the commentators, like the analyst, color commentator, what have you, pulls up a big version of the map and wants to draw on it. Well, then the observer could spectate that commentator's POV and see them having pulled up the map and them drawing on things. Now, granted, I don't know how this would technically be possible. I know that in CSGO, there are ways for us to all join GoTV and follow the observers. It was like a server setting that allowed us to do this, and the observer could never follow the caster's POV, but we could follow the observer's POV, but also be in the server and pull up the map overview to look at things if we wanted to, pull up the scoreboard, all those sorts of things, right? So, and again, I think that you could either do this where, you know, the spec UI and what the viewers at home are the same, or you can make it to where the commentators have a special UI that gives them all the information that they want without, again, messing up how clean the broadcast feed looks. So I'll show you some examples of that later when I pull up some images of like player bars and things of that nature, right? And then one other thing before I get into like talking about the actual spec UI, some people are kind of having this debate about team colors, right? Should attack always be red and defense always be like green or whatever that color is? It kind of looks green to me. Or should it follow the team? Should one team always be red throughout the entirety of the game, no matter what side they're on, and then one team be green, no matter what side of the map that they're on? Personally, as a broadcaster, I like it to where attacking is always red and defending is always green. Because when you're looking at X-ray colors, you know, player models, X-ray colors, like through walls, stuff like that we get on the spec UI, it's just a little bit easier in the heat of the moment sometimes to realize, okay, that's a defender on the other side of that wall, that's an attacker on the other side of that wall, rather than following a team through and through. So that's me personally. That's how Counter-Strike's always operated from a spectating experience, where CTs were always blue and Ts were always red, and that could be in some other games as well, like Call of Duty. Now, what will be great down the road, and I've seen this mentioned before, is if the teams had their own colors. So like 100 Thieves is always red, you know, and Cloud9's always blue, or whatever the case may be. And then those team colors can follow. And we have seen that in Call of Duty throughout the years, where, you know, you have those types of custom colors that follow the team's kind of, you know, colors that they use on their jerseys and things of that nature. And that could be something that works. I mean, we see that obviously in Overwatch as well, in the OWL. So that would be something that would be great down the line. But I think for now, if we're keeping it simple until we can get to a more advanced stage where we're using team colors, I think the idea of having attack and defense always one color, I think is less confusing personally. Now, some viewers at home may not see that way. They may think that it's easier to follow one color and know that that color's one particular team the entire game. But I think that if the spec UI is good enough and the team names switch on the top of the screen, then you should be able to follow that pretty easily. And I just think I'm just so used to it from a broadcast perspective that, you know, attack is red, defense is blue or green or whatever. That just makes sense to me personally. But anyway, that's that. So now I'm going to pull up some images and actually talk a little bit about some of the other things I'd like to see tweaked on the spec UI. So here is a screenshot that I took from one of the matches going on right now in the North American First Strike qualifiers from Nerd Street Gamers. And this is from the Open qualifier. This was Gen G versus TSM. And basically, what I've drawn on here is just some things I would like to see change personally, and I'll kind of talk through some of this. So in the yellow is just things I'd like to move or get rid of. So up top, I don't think we need the, you know, characters at the top. This is very similar to how Overwatch has their spec UI and some other games I'm sure as well. But personally, I would rather have this stuff on the sides. So the red box is the attacking side that I have on the left, and then the defending side is the green box I have there on the right. And the reason why I think the player bars would be better is because we need to be able to tell what player is playing what agent way more quickly, and to keep tabs on players' health when we're not on their POV. This is something that obviously comes from Counter-Strike, Call of Duty, and other first-person shooters, and I think that this is just really important information to have on the fly. I can't tell you how many times as a commentator that I've had to kind of quickly try to figure out what player is playing what agent. And I know that we should be knowledgeable about these teams. We should know what agents each player likes to play. But I'm sorry, in the heat of the moment, when it's like an intense, you know, duel and trade frags are going off, you're not going to always be able to quickly remember that, quickly reference that. And so I have in the past, I know that many commentators do this, where they just kind of jot it down on a notepad, you know, before the game goes live. Like, oh, this person's playing this agent, that way I can quickly look at my notepad. If I'm in the heat of the moment, I kind of just, you know, happen to slip my memory and I can quickly reference it. But we shouldn't have to be doing that extra work. If we want the spectator experience for the viewers at home to be easier and have good information, and to have the commentators have good information and be able to quickly see things they need to see on the fly, then I think that we need to have the player bars where, you know, over there on the left, you can have each, you know, agent avatar just like they have at the top, then have the player name like in the bigger bar next to the small box and then have like their health, have maybe like what gun they have maybe what utility they still have available. Maybe you don't need to clutter it with utility because we can just see that when we're on the player POV, but we need to at least see the agent, the player playing that agent, and what their health is, like at bare minimum, just because that makes things way easier on the fly. Then when it comes to the minimap, I've kind of put a couple of things over there as well. For one, I think that we should have outlines around smokes to know which team threw it. I know sometimes it's very obvious, but sometimes it's not in the heat of the moment to know whether it's a defensive smoke or an attacking smoke. And so putting like a little circular outline around the Omen smoke would better tell you which team threw that smoke. Also putting outlines around utilities such as the tripwires and cameras would be really good to know, who put that down. Again, I know that usually it's pretty common sense based on the tripwire's location, whether it was an attacking tripwire or an defending tripwire, same with cameras, but it would just provide a little bit more clarity. Maybe, a camera gets replaced in a retake or a post-plant situation, and maybe it's not as clear-cut who put that camera down in the heat of the moment. I think the same could be said for maybe when you see a flash pop on the minimap or like a fault line from Breach, obviously, to have that maybe even color the team, whether it's attacking or defending, that put the fault line down. Different things like that I think will be great on the minimap just for better reference, to be able to, not get confused in the heat of the moment on who's using that or who placed it. So that's a couple other things. And now I'll actually pull up the Counter-Strike UI to kind of, better illustrate the player bar situation, as well as, just kind of review everything. So here is the UI that Flashpoint uses, and this is also what the old Faceit UI was as well in Counter-Strike. I think this is super good because, again, you have the player bars there on the left and right-hand side of the screen, but they're towards the bottom corner, so they don't take up much. You can still very clearly see the players on your far left and far right with the X-ray on and stuff like that. The player bars aren't in the way of that vision. The player name is, towards the bottom. Again, not really blocking any vision, not really pulling your attention away from the crosshair or where the POV is looking, but you get all the information. You get the player's name, and essentially, if you were looking at this and you look at Maiden, who's dead, the number 1 slot, you could easily just put the avatar of the agent to the left of that, and then you could quickly reference, who is playing the agent and all that good stuff. You have the health bars there that give you an update on how much health they have, and then you can, again, see what weapon they currently have. You could see, their KD ratio, always on, so you can quickly tell how many kills and how many deaths each player has. I know that's not always the most important information, but it's nice to have that at a glance, to kind of tell how a player's doing. Maybe you could put ACS in there or something like that as well if you wanted to, or ADR, or there could be other stats you put there. Obviously, quickly knowing how much money that they have for the future would also be good, because here's the thing, you don't always want to flash the scoreboard up on the screen, but currently as a commentator, you can't pull up the scoreboard. Again, the way we could solve this is by having the commentators in the spec UI, but still the ability to follow the observer, so they could pull up the scoreboard whenever the heck they wanted to reference that type of stuff. But if you had it built into the player bar for quick reference, then you would kind of avoid all that. And I'm sure viewers at home would like to know that information too. You don't always just want to know the kill, the KDA of the person you're spectating. You'd like to maybe know just a full picture of the entire server. So I think that is, really good stuff that you see here on the player bars in the bottom left and bottom right hand of this UI. Also up top, notice there is a timeline for the match, right? You get to see who won the round and how they won it, whether it was based off of kills, whether it was based off of the defuse, whether it was based off of the bomb exploding, or of course, obviously with the spike going off in Valorant, and the score and all that good stuff. And I think that's just super clean, in my opinion. So I really think that we could take, things from this Flashpoint UI, like the match timeline at the top, like the player bars on the left and right, that are positioned really well to, again, avoid clutter, but give you information you want as far as health, as far as what weapons are being used. Again, give you the player names. Again, you would just put the agent avatar next to the names for Maiden, Farlick, Sticko, Crystal, and Zine, but obviously using Valorant players, right? I hope you get what I'm saying here. I'm trying to illustrate just some things that I think would be fantastic to, again, give the viewers at home more information, but help us do our jobs better as commentators. And I'm sure that Riot is thinking about this. There's a lot of people working there that have had experience working in Counter-Strike or other first-person shooters, and I'm sure they're aware of this. I just think that it comes down to one thing here. It comes down to the fact that Riot is now running their first tournament that they own. Yes, they are outsourcing the qualifiers to various different TOs, which I think is great to have that, symbiotic relationship between Riot, the developer, and, organizations out there who are trying to support the game with tournaments and trying to help build up a community and help build up viewership and bring attention to the game and celebrate the esport side of Valorant. But I think that once we start getting to the main event of First Strike, the spec UI needs to be up to snuff. I think that it's something that probably hasn't been as a priority as, putting out maps and agents and balance and weapon balance and economy balance and things of that nature. Obviously, those are important to core gameplay and in competitive integrity. But I do think the spec UI needs to get up to speed very quickly if we're going to continue to have, Riot Run events, or we're going to continue to see more prestigious events down the line, especially once we get to LAN, which will hopefully happen sometime in 2021, which is not that far away. So I think that these changes to spec UI should become more of a priority going forward, because I do think that they are just, oh so important. And again, a lot of this stuff is common sense. A lot of this is copy and paste from Counter-Strike. I'm not claiming to be some type of innovator, and I'm sure Riot kind of knows these things, but I just wanted to bring attention to it because I think that we're getting to a point now where bigger events are coming up for Valorant, and the Spectator UI, therefore, is becoming more and more important for viewers at home as well as people working on the game. So that's it. Hope you folks enjoyed this video. I'll hopefully be putting out more Valorant content in the future. I know that I'll be commentating more Valorant going forward, at least the close qualifiers for First Strike for NA side. I'm definitely going to be doing, I think, a few days after this video comes out. And hopefully I'll be doing more down the future with my buddy Vince. And again, I'll try to put out more content that's more focused on teams and history and strategy and things of that nature as well. But this is something that's important to me as a commentator. And I'm sure it's important to you at home as a viewer. And it's one to kind of give my thoughts and hopefully generate some discussion. So thanks so much for tuning in. Catch you next time.